Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the Nothing But Locks podcast. I'm your host, Ali Melniki, accompanied by my favorite coworker, Robert Kowalski. How you doing today, Robert?
Ali, I knew this was going to be a mad March, but man, oh man.
It was one of the craziest opening weekends I think I've ever seen. Quick bracket update. I am still very much alive in all three of my pools. I believe I'm in 4th in one, 10th in another, and I think 15th in another, but I do have a lot more points I can still get to than some people above me. I have 3 of my final 4 teams still all intact. Remember, I had Alabama, UConn, Texas. Duke is the only one that didn't make it for me. But I also led most of my pools correctly predicting. I had 8 upsets. I was heavy on upsets this year. It proved to really benefit me because I don't think I've seen an opening weekend that has been so many upsets that there were. So, Robert, let's get straight into the betting trends. I know it was a long 4-day weekend, but what game did the books do the best in? And what game did the public actually cash in the best?
Okay, and it's so strange, Ali. You really never know what's going to garner the most interest when you open up the polls, across, the round 1 and round 2. So the games that saw the public do best is actually Furman over Virginia. A lot of money line bets on Furman. Michigan State over Marquette. And that one also came in very heavily on points for Michigan State, winner outright there.
Right.
The other way around, where the public didn't do so well, Duke over Oral Roberts. A lot of support on Oral Roberts. We kind of discussed that one about a week ago, all that support for that school. And then Alabama over Maryland, actually. A lot of backers on the Terrapins. Not so good there. Yep.
Yeah, none of that's surprising. I had both of those upsets. I did have Furman over Virginia in my bracket, and I had Michigan State upsetting Marquette yesterday. Those were 2 of my upsets. I didn't really get the Oral Roberts hype. I know my dad was one of them who really liked Oral Roberts to win outright. I just didn't. I didn't see any body of work from Oral Roberts that warranted all that support. And Alabama, Maryland, that's not surprised. Maryland always has a huge following in their basketball program. They did have a good first round when they knocked off West Virginia. So I can see why people might have thought that Alabama, or at least Maryland, would have kept it close with Alabama. So that one game does not surprise me at all. What about which game had the most bets placed on it this weekend, Robert?
Again, this is also pretty amazing. You would think it's some of the top seeded schools, but it wasn't. It was St. Mary's and UConn.
Wow.
And Arkansas and Kansas. So again, it's weird where the buckets start to get filled the most, but those are the 1 and 1A as far as games with the most dollars bet on in one particular matchup.
And I think looking back at my bracket, that's the one regret I had, because I almost did pull the trigger on number 8 Arkansas upsetting number 1 Kansas in the round of 32. I took it back at the last second. I let Kansas go to Sweet 16, where I would have had them losing there anyway, so it wasn't a big of a loss. But I did take Arkansas plus 3.5 on I think it was Saturday. Yeah, on Saturday. So I did at least win the bet in that. So Arkansas, they have a nice team. I think that people that really follow college basketball that knew that Bill Self wasn't coaching Kansas kind of jumped on that too. So that wasn't as much surprising to me. But let's move ahead, because it's one thing to reflect on the weekend, which we are going to do coming up. But what about going forward? What teams right now have the best odds, Robert, to win the title or the national championship? And what team or teams do you see as having the best value?
Okay, sure. Yeah, we can actually set this up in different packs, so to say. So top odds right now in this, your mileage may vary. Alabama, we have Alabama at plus 350 and Houston at 4-1. Some books already have Houston the favorite and Alabama right behind them. The next pack is all anywhere between 8 to 10-1, which is Tennessee, Creighton, Gonzaga, Texas, UConn, and UCLA. So that's the next pairing. After that, we're looking pretty deep drop. 35-1 for Michigan State, Arkansas, and Xavier. And then right behind them, K-State, San Diego State, and Miami at 40-1, Florida Atlantic at 50-1, and Princeton, I made 250-1.
I would take K-State at 40-1. I like K-State a lot. I have them going to the Elite Eight, which is another one. I almost put them going past. I had them facing Duke in the Elite Eight. I should have put Kansas State over them, but buyer's remorse is always there. I like this Kansas State team a lot. I was very impressed with how they performed against Kentucky, Robert. I think that Johnson on that team, I can't pronounce his name. Apparently, it's still early on a Monday. But he's one of the players I love watching. I also love Noel. It's just that he's a little guy, but he can get in and out and just score at will. So I do like Kansas State's team with the value they're getting. What team sticks out for you with value-wise?
I think if you pair it out and you see exactly what's remaining, if I had to ignore the second set and look beyond, I probably would go and back. And if we're looking for a school that's got something that makes me want to back them, it's their results in this game. Of course, everyone's playing neutral. Going back to K-State, they shot 64%, from inside the arc. Their trays 5 for 21 against Kentucky. Nothing really lights out, but they did shoot 18 of 22 from the free throw line. Yeah. That made me happy. That's something that I was impressed with. You could hit free throws. That's going to get you there. I do have a point to make about the tempo of some of these games. We'll get to that in a little bit later in today's episode. But obviously, what I want to see is a team that can push the pace and then do something a little bit better than the 3-point shooting in general from the opening weekend has been much to be desired. No one's really hitting them well. A lot of dominance on the inside, but no one's hitting these outside threes. But I honestly think right now, if I'm pairing it to a team that I need to go from outside, I probably would look at either Arkansas or maybe how about Creighton?
Yeah.
I'll look at Creighton as a little bit of a shot.
Yeah, I like Creighton a lot. I had them. Well, I had Baylor losing to Santa Barbara, but then I would have had Creighton beating Santa Barbara. So that was a big win for me when Creighton did knock off Baylor yesterday. I like Creighton a lot. I actually always liked Creighton more than I liked Marquette. I just wasn't sold on Marquette. So I can see that. I can see backing Creighton a good amount. But before we move on and dive into the weekend further, Robert, who's getting the most action right now to win the national championship?
Okay, great. So if we look at it from that point, again, bringing up K-State. Well, if we're breaking down exactly dollars and what's the liability right now, K-State and Xavier winning the title is going to hurt the most. Alabama has the most tickets. But it's still a good decision for the book if K-State or Xavier win. Yeah, that one's gonna hurt.
All right, well, let's get into the weekend, and I don't even know where to start because it was 4 days of just mayhem. I know that I was out at St. Patrick's Day on Friday, and I think that the bar that I was at just stopped to watch the Fairleigh Dickinson defeat Purdue. And obviously, it's not the first time a 16 seed beat a number 1 seed. We saw that with Virginia losing a few years back. But Robert, this is going to become more the norm, I would think. It's happened 2 times, I believe, in the past 4 years now. Do you see this becoming more of a norm where people are actually going to pick 16 seeds in their brackets to defeat a 1 seed?
I would say yes, right? It's starting to happen far more and more. And that's just clearly showing that there's some parity. What I do want to point out, though, is it's not exactly specific towards conferences, right? It's just looking at the matchup and saying, hey, you know what? This team can hit free throws. And because of that, they'll definitely have a chance there's been some really sloppy play from some teams that I didn't expect to see that. And, that's why we've got this, this run right now with Princeton, for example. I mean, heck, pre-tournament, Princeton was 750 to 1, right? So you can always find a price somewhere out there. And then we're just basically looking for schools that are outside of that power bracket, right? And this is exactly what's happening right now. So yeah, I would say you're finding far more and more of an upset. You mentioned last week, and clearly, I'm hoping our listeners is tuning in and taking advantage in those first round games. Double digits against a single digit in the first round, second round is definitely something you should definitely pay attention to.
Yeah.
Without that, it's you're laying points, and if you're laying points, you typically would think you've got the favorite and the right team to advance, but that's not been the case this year.
No, and I was actually kicking myself too, because I loved Princeton when they won the Ivy League championship. I didn't like their seeding at number 15, and I still, while I've picked 14 seeds to beat number 3 seeds, I still haven't been bold enough to pick a 15 seed to defeat a 2 seed. Now, Princeton, I thought they should have at least been a 13 seed at the minimum, not 15 seed at the minimum, because Robert, these are guys that can shoot, and a lot of them are upperclassmen with experience. I think that's something people need to take into account in the years coming up. And it's one of the reasons I chose Furman over Virginia. When you get these mid-level schools that have guys that have played for 4 years versus teams that have mostly freshmen and sophomores, it's a big difference, not just in experience, but in body weight and everything. Having the body of a 22-year-old is vastly different than the body of a 19-year-old. So do you think that's something that people should keep in mind when filling out their brackets next year?
I would say yes. Right. And let's take Princeton as an example. Let's stay there. Right. And obviously, when they upset Missouri, it wasn't close. I mean, the shooting was pretty much equal, but Princeton went, 12 of 33 from beyond the arc, 12 of 15 on the free throw line. And of their 44 rebounds, which, by the way, they out-rebounded Missouri, 16 of them were offensive. The smart offense keeps getting good looks versus awful defenses. And I think, again, if we just dig a little bit deeper, you'll see this in 2-point defense, right? This is the efficiency that I've been looking at. And it's some of these matchups are just far closer than they should be. And it's not a matter of how they're seeded. It's just a matter of how they're ranked.
Right. Yeah, no, all great points in that one. It's another reason, if you think about the Duke and Tennessee game. Now, I wasn't high on Tennessee. I actually had Louisiana Lafayette upsetting them in the first round, which they almost did. They only lost by a basket on Thursday night. But when I saw Duke playing against Tennessee, Robert, just the size difference from the get-go, I was like, there's no way Duke is hanging in there. I mean, Philip Kowski was just getting obliterated by the big guys for Tennessee. So let's quickly sit on Tennessee, because I know both you and I were a little more bearish about them before entering the tournament. So what do you think? Can they win this region now? Because you don't have Marquette anymore, you don't have Purdue, and you don't have Duke. So should Tennessee or Kansas State be the favorite to win the region?
I would say absolutely yes. Yeah, I do think that it was Tennessee that should have won this region. And if we're looking now, obviously they're not having to face off against Marquette. They're not having to face off against, if we break it down even further, actually, I mean, there's a lot to be said about this game against Duke. And honestly, if we have, look, Duke won 2-point shooting in that game. They did pretty well. I mean, Tennessee only shot 39%, but that didn't make up for real significant losses in other categories in otherwise really slow game. 15 turnovers for Duke, along with 15 missed 3-pointers while getting out-rebounded in a slow affair. You're not going to win, even if you've got like superior talent. Tennessee was able to really slow the game down. That was in favor of their tempo. And again, the turnovers, it comes back, years and years and years. You're not going to overcome that. no matter how talented you are, Allie.
Yeah, no, I agree with you right there. Let's quickly go back to Princeton because there was a question I did want to ask you that I forgot. But we've seen too, going along with the number 16 seeds over one. I think more prevalent though, there's been a lot of 15 seeds being 2 seeds in recent years. I think a few years ago, Middle Tennessee defeated Michigan State as a number 2 seed. And there's been others I just can't think of off the top of my head. So are 15 seeds over number 2 seeds becoming more of the 12 over the 5? Because no 12s won over the weekend, Robert, which I was very surprised in. I had 2. I had Charleston and I had VCU. Neither of them won. A lot of people jumped on Drake. I didn't. And a lot of people, like you said, jumped on Oral Roberts. But is the 15 over the 2 becoming the new 12 over the 5?
I would say, like early on, you would think this is impossible. Why even bother with that? You'll have the bridge jumpers that'll just take all the, the number 1 seeds or the number 2 seeds and parlay them all together because, after all, how could they lose? Well, they can lose. And again, it's all a matter now of finding out, were these schools actually seated correctly, right? And that's the biggest question right now. And then, look, we can say that K-State probably shouldn't have been ranked with the 3 seed, but here they are today. Creighton, on the other hand, as a 6 seed, I don't think that they should have been that high. So there's, and actually even Xavier should have been even lower. But as it matters, there's so much to be said about setting your own data sets and comparing them. Once you start to see where they're seated, you could say, hey, you know what? Not only do I disagree with where they're seated, here's why. And then that'll play into, of course, each individual game and each individual matchup from a point spread perspective. So 100%, yes. Heck, why even stop there? At the very least, give some thought to maybe even, taking points with a 16 over a 1.
Yeah, that's always something I actually found a good strategy because I do believe the 16 seeds can keep it close in certain situations. Let's get into the nitty gritty. What upset of the weekend, and this is including the whole weekend, Thursday through Sunday. Let's throw out Fairleigh Dickinson and Princeton. Those are 2 just mind-boggling ones. But besides those 2 upsets, what upset did surprise you most?
I'll go with, and it's the point spread doesn't really call it as a big upset, but I'm still going to call Miami over Indiana. The final score of 85-69. The game to me was really most impressive when you looked at the rebounds. Hurricanes out-rebounded Indiana 48-31 with 20 offensive rebounds, right? So it's tight stats outside of that rebounding route, which of course creates those extra chances. So to me, that one was the one that was most impressive of the weekend.
See, I wasn't too surprised about that one because we talked last week. Originally, I had Indiana going pretty far. I think I had them going to the Elite 8. And then the more I thought of it, I just didn't trust Indiana to stay consistent. I thought they would have, if they had 1 win, then that would be it. I actually switched my pick all the way to having Kent State upset them.
Yes.
But even if I had Indiana advancing, I would have had Miami over them as well. So that didn't really surprise me that much. I would say really looking at it, if I'm looking and seeing what upset did surprise me the most, I mean, I don't know, Robert. They were a lot of them were telltale. I guess by Vegas's books, I really didn't think at the beginning that Tennessee could beat Duke, but Tennessee technically was seeded higher than them. They were a 4 seed. Duke was a 3.5 point favorite before them. I just didn't really think that Duke would come out so unprepared like that and really just not know that these are men they're playing against. Like, they're physical guys. So I think, if anything, that really did surprise me a lot. I think maybe Utah State also losing to Missouri in the first round. A lot of people, including myself, was on Utah State. So that one really surprised me. But otherwise, I told you, I pick a lot of upsets. So I wasn't too surprised. But let's go with the inverse. What upset did not surprise you at all?
Yeah, and again, what are we calling, like, again, upsets in terms of seeding versus upsets versus in terms of, their bracket positioning? I would probably think that the performance of, well, Florida Atlantic actually was a pretty impressive move. Getting to where they are today as the 9.
Yeah.
And of course, well, Princeton's, that one was the big one but for me, I was happiest seeing the Big East making a move.
Hmm.
And that was something that I didn't expect to see. And so, seeing them still alive here in the second weekend, pretty impressive. But for me, the one that I circled the most that says, hey, you know what? Congratulations, even though you were 33-3 on the year, Florida Atlantic.
Oh, good. Yeah, the Michigan State beating Marquette did not surprise me at all. I know I took a lot of heat from people when I did say that Michigan State was going to be in the Sweet 16. A lot of people actually picked USC to beat them in the first round.
Yes.
I always said when Tom Izzo is not expected to win, he takes his team far. I think he took Michigan State a few years ago to the Final Four when they were a 7 seed. So that was one that did not surprise me at all. And I would say, and Kansas State over Kentucky. I know that Kansas State was a 3, Kentucky was a 6, but Kentucky was favored in that game. I did not think that Kentucky was going to pull it out. I think a lot of people bet Kentucky over Kansas State because Calipari, because of the name recognition. So I say those two were the least surprising for me. All right, Robert, I told you most of the upsets that I got right. What are some of the upsets that you got right this weekend?
were there any actually? I don't know if there was, the ones that really jumped out the most that I thought was going to be the right side were more from a point spread perspective. Ali, to be honest, the thing that was really the one that I was really looking at was all of these unders. When you look at the total, do you understand that we started this tournament with 30 of the 40 games going under the total?
I always bet the under in March Madness. I said my favorite bet every year was always bet the under of the first half in the first game of the tournament. These kids, they come out, they have butterflies, they're a little nervous. They put up some errant shots. So I'm all about unders in the tournament.
Yeah, not only errant shots, but just really like wild, like NBA, like theatrical type passing. It's like, guys, you just, how about a bounce pass here or there?
Yeah, right.
So the market's definitely been overshooting the market on totals to this point. Of course, some randomness is always involved, but 3-point shooting has been mostly unimpressive or awful. There's a few crazy free throw totals. The paces are steady, but the betting public loves betting overs, and they root for points.
Yeah.
That's probably, there's more factors than just that, but these unders have been incredible in the opening run. So I don't think that it's going to change much in the next set of games. But obviously, as we start to see the far better schools, move on, and obviously the totals and all the totals are going to start to readjust as I'm starting to see them, already around town for this coming Thursday and Friday, Ali. So not so much am I, tooting a an underdog selection, but more so just from the total perspective.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I was texting a lot with my brother and everything, and I kept saying unders were just the way to go. If you want to parlay, go crazy, parlay unders. That's what you're gonna get.
Yes.
But enough recapping because we could talk about every game all day. Let's look ahead to the Sweet 16. So if you have your bracket busted, fortunately, if you're in one of the many legalized states, or if you feel like taking a trip to Vegas or somewhere, you can bet still and save any kind of sanity you might still have. I know probably people were ripping their hairs out all weekend. So we got 2 1 seeds left, Robert, Alabama and Houston. Which 1 seed do you think is more vulnerable to not make it to the championship?
Again, based off of what I've seen most of February into March, and then conference play, and then obviously in the opening weekend, I don't think that there is going to be a number 1 that will fall. I'll get that out. However, if I had to choose, I'd probably choose Houston instead of Alabama, who obviously, Alabama is going to be playing the winner of Princeton Creighton. So if there was a 1, for me, Ali, it's Houston. Do you have a different one?
No, I agree with you. I have Houston losing to Texas in the Elite 8. I still think Texas outshoots them. What do you think about that?
Yes, that is absolutely correct. Uh, Texas, a great program. But if I've got to break it down right now, I think I'd make Houston 4.5 over Texas.
Yeah. What about, let's go with the number 2 seeds that are left, Robert. Who do you think is most vulnerable?
If we pare down the twos, now we actually have something a little bit better to look at. I would say, and what a matchup here with UCLA.
Don't tell me you're going to pick Gonzaga.
UCLA, one of the better defensive schools in the entire nation against the best offensive power. So
I mean, Drew Timmy can't have another performance like he put on last night. I can't see that.
there should be a return to the mean, shouldn't there? UCLA will advance. I'll push that forward. Yes. Texas will beat Xavier. Matter of fact, I actually think that one, yeah, to be honest, that one should probably be a little bit more. I'm just paring down the spreads right now, and I feel that Texas as a 4-point favorite. I think that they should cover that. It probably should be more like 5.5 or 6. And then on the other side, Allie, we've got, no, that's basically it, right? For the twos?
Yeah, just 2 left.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say out of all of them, I would pick UCLA to fall just because they are still a little injured. I do like UConn alive, UConn going to the Final Four and winning it all. So that would be the one I would say would fall first, would be UCLA. Plus, they still have their guard that's injured. They had one of their other players got hurt, brutal, how he sprained his ankle the other night. So I don't know his status for the next game, but I think UCLA could fall first. All right, Robert.
Actually, there is actually one other very quick upset that I do see right here. And this one just jumped. It wasn't a top seed, but I mean, we talked about him early in the show. K-State should be the favorite here, in my opinion.
Oh, I think so too.
Right, as a dog, I think that they definitely win that game against Michigan State. So if there's an upset there, that's one I'd like to circle.
Yeah, I agree. I think Kansas State. I have them beating Michigan State anyway in my bracket. I think that one is coming too. Does Miami though, Robert, have any chance against Houston this weekend?
Oof, no, not really too high on that at all.
Nah, I'm not either.
If I had, let me just do a quick look here, with the game being what it is, and obviously the spread's already set. Houston's a 7-point favorite pretty much everywhere. Allie, they probably should be like 14. So I think Houston by double digits.
What about Alabama and San Diego State? San Diego State snuck into the Sweet 16. A lot of them had them getting upset either in the first or second round. Does San Diego State stand a chance?
To cover.
Yeah,
that's about it. As an 8-point dog, healthy, I'll never go ahead and chide anyone for taking points ever. But I think Bama wins this game. Maybe they don't cover, however.
All right, Robin and I are going to come back, I believe, Wednesday, and we're going to talk about more spreads as it gets closer to tip off. But real quick, Robert, if you had to redo your Final Four predictions, what would they be with the remaining 16 teams?
Oh, dear Allie, I don't think that there's much of a difference anymore. I think I said I think I like Tennessee to advance. If I didn't, let me go ahead and stamp them forward. Yeah. I do like what I saw this opening weekend from them. UConn for sure. That hasn't changed. And then Houston and Alabama, I do have them making it to the Final Four.
I'm going to stick. I still have Alabama. I still have UConn. I still have Texas beating Houston. I'm not going to falter on that because I do think Houston's going to slip up one of these games. Now, Duke I had coming out of, I believe, the East region, if I think that's the region it is. But if I had to switch it, I think Kansas State, I really do. I think that they not only beat Michigan State, I think they go up against Tennessee and beat Tennessee. I just think Tennessee has gotten lucky. I still don't really like their shooting. They got really hot against Duke from the 3-point line. I don't think they're going to keep up that momentum. So I would change it and have Kansas State get to the Final Four in that division or that region.
Blazing hot.
All right. Well, that's our show for today, Robert. It was another fun weekend. I'm sure you didn't get a lot of sleep at Baldini's, but it's still always a fun weekend. Probably one of my favorite weekends, if not the favorite weekend of the entire year. I mentioned before, Robert and I will be back Wednesday. We'll dissect all 16 games, give you some previews for the Elite Eight as well. And before we sign off, Robert, any last thoughts for the audience?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no doubt. And you're saying if there's any breaks, there are no breaks. Keep them coming. CBI is still playing today. We'll still have NIT, so there's still so much more to go. Love this time of year.
All right, everyone. Thanks for joining and take care.